While I was in the military, I was stationed in Puerto Rico, North Carolina, and I was in Saudi Arabia and Iraq. And I worked as an MP, military police officer, and I was a paratrooper too. And again, I've been working with veterans with mindfulness-based interventions since 2010 as well. But just kind of an overview of veterans in the United States first. There's, in 2018, there were 18.2 million veterans, which sounds like a lot, but actually now less than 1% serve in the military. Because military, for anybody who's been exposed to it, it is its own culture. It has its very distinct culture, it has a language, and as with any cultural competency, we want to learn about these things as we're working with people, because we don't want to expect people to know to have to teach us. Understanding the impacts of military service on families, this is a really big piece of what Verdi was talking about, and we have around, and I'll get into some numbers here in a little bit, but around 20,000 active duty members in Alaska, and whenever you take that times the number of veterans we have, times family members, we're talking about almost a quarter of our population is veteran or military affiliated. So this is something that's really important for us in Alaska to be aware of, these effects on military service on families as well. One of the things that we need to really be aware of too is the effects of oppression and discrimination in the military. Racism, even though there's regulations against it, doesn't mean it still doesn't happen. Sexism, homophobia. One of the bigger things right now that's happening is, transgender troops. Again, not having to know everything, but know what questions to ask and knowing how to ask those questions. Any kind of trauma-related things, we want to make sure that people have a choice as to whether to go there or not. And even sometimes preempting it is like, look, we've all experienced lots of things, and we're not expecting you to maybe go to the most deepest, darkest thing that you've experienced, because sometimes that can activate people and bring up things. But maybe there's something that you could talk about if you're comfortable doing that. That's maybe one of those kind of lighter of the heavy things that have happened to you, one of the lighter ones, so that way it's not activating people. And one of the things, is really also, and we'll get into this here in a bit, but really trying to destigmatize post-traumatic stress. I don't use the D part of it, and even though it's in the DSM and all of that, it's just the disorder aspect of it. To me, is post-traumatic stress is actually a natural response to unnatural human conditions. One of the things the state of Alaska has also done is they've actually called it an injury versus a disorder. And so, how we talk about that and how we work with people around that, and if we normalize things, it makes people feel more like open to talking about it versus there's something wrong with me. That it's something that anybody would have that kind of reaction to if they experience that, or everybody has different levels of reactions to things based on past experiences too. And caring for war veterans peaks 30 to 40 years after a conflict. That's when our biggest expense, the most number. And when you think about our current conflicts, we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg yet. Trauma is one of the things that a lot of veterans do experience, but not every veteran, and that's one of the things we have to keep in mind too. A lot of times there's a negative thing around that too, that people think every veteran has post-traumatic stress, and that's not the case. But a lot of people do, and that's another thing, like that comparing and contrasting that can be really damaging, because different people have different, what we know about trauma is that, one person, you and I could see the exact same thing or be in the exact same situation. One of us have, long lasting effects from that, and the other one not. And that's just the way it works. And post-traumatic growth of how you can't change what happened, but what we can do is change our relationship to it.